Welcome back. The details. Upon directives of President Abdel Fattah Sisi, Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli chaired the first meeting of the Crisis Management Committee formed to probe the death of Egyptian pilgrims in Saudi Arabia. Madbouli stressed that the companies that had facilitated travel for unregistered pilgrims would be investigated and penalized. Here are more details. Prime Minister Dr. Mustafa Madbouli on Saturday ordered 16 tourism companies stripped of their licenses and refer their managers to the Public Prosecutor's Office for illegally facilitating pilgrims' travel to Mecca. The cabinet said in a statement, the rise in the deaths of unregistered Egyptian pilgrims stemmed from some companies which organize the Hajj programs using a personal visa of visit which prevents its holders from entering Mecca via official channels. Madbouli said four ministries' missions were visiting Saudi hospitals to collect data over injured Egyptians being hospitalized. The Ministry of Health and Population said it had provided medical examination and offered treatment to some 18,700 pilgrims through 24 clinics affiliated to the Egyptian Hajj mission in the holy cities of Mecca and Al-Medina. The overall death toll from this year's Hajj has exceeded 1,000, including 658 Egyptians. In recent days, hundreds of people from different countries have died in punishing conditions for the Hajj pilgrimage in the Saudi Arabian city, where temperatures have at times exceeded 51 degrees Celsius. The medical source who was with the official Egyptian Hajj delegation said the majority of those who died were not formally registered for the event with the authorities, which meant that they could not access tents. The fifth pillar of Islam, the Hajj, is mandatory once in a lifetime for every able-bodied Muslim who can afford it and is the most significant manifestation of Islamic faith and unity. Meanwhile, Tunisian President Kais Saied sacked the Minister of Religious Affairs after 49 Tunisians were reported to have died so far in this year's Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia. On Tuesday, the Tunisian Foreign Ministry reported the death of 35 Tunisian pilgrims, but the number has risen to 49 so far, according to Tunisian media. The ministry did not specify whether the deaths were related to high temperatures, adding that most of the dead had traveled to Saudi Arabia with tourist visas and outside of the Saudi government's official pilgrimage program. Deaths during the pilgrimage time have also been confirmed by Malaysia, India, Jordan, Iran, Senegal, Tunisia, Sudan, and Iraq's Kurdistan region. Minister of Defense Lieutenant General Mohammed Zaki met on Saturday with visiting French Army Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Thierry Bourcard and his accompanying delegation currently in an official visit to Cairo. The talks covered ways of boosting bilateral military cooperation as well as the current repercussions of the regional developments and their negative impacts on the Middle East and stability. Earlier, Army Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Osama Askar held an official reception to his French counterpart in the headquarters of the Ministry of Defense. The two sides stressed the deeply rooted ties that bind France and Egypt as they shared the same vision in different fields of common interest. Egypt welcomed Armenia's announcement to recognize the state of Palestine as a step in support of the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people to end the Israeli occupation and establish an independent state on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem or Al-Quds as its capital. In a statement of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Egypt praised Armenia's support for the Palestinian cause. It added that Egypt also called on influential international parties to carry out their moral and historical responsibilities towards the Palestinian people to intervene to preserve their rights at this time when they are facing tough humanitarian conditions. A series of countries have recognized the state of Palestine amid the Israeli genocide war in Gaza, drawing strong rebukes from the Israeli officials. At least 25 people were martyred and another 50 wounded in attacks on tents for displaced Palestinians sheltering in southern Gaza. Witnesses whose relatives died in one of the bombardments near a Red Cross field hospital told reporters that Israeli forces fired a second volley that killed people who came out of their tents. Details follow.
Israel's military pounded Gaza on Saturday. After a day, the International Committee of the Red Cross said at least 24 people were killed in shelling that damaged its office in the besieged Palestinian territory. Exchanges of fire across the Lebanese border between Israel and the powerful Hezbollah group have also escalated, raising fears of an even wider war. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the cross-border hostilities must not turn Lebanon into another Gaza, warning of the risk of a catastrophe beyond imagination. For his part, Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah said no place in Israel would be spared our rockets in a wider war, and also threatened nearby European Union member Cyprus. Citing bellicose rhetoric on both sides, Guterres warned Friday that the risk of all-out war was real. His warning came as Israel stepped up its strikes in the Gaza Strip. The fighting continued on Saturday, with witnesses reporting gun battles between militants and Israeli forces in Gaza City. Witnesses also reported Israeli helicopters firing at resistance sites in the city's Zaytun neighborhood. Earlier, the occupation military said troops had continued to carry out operations in central Gaza and that its jet had struck targets across the Palestinian territory. The ICRC said dozens who were killed and injured were taken to a Red Cross field hospital after shelling with heavy caliber projectiles near its office in southern Gaza. Months of negotiations towards a truce and a hostage release have failed to make headway, but mediator Qatar insisted Friday it was still working to bridge the gap between Israel and Hamas.
Days after Israel announced a daily pause in fighting on a key route to allow more aid into Gaza, chaos in the besieged Palestinian territory has left vital supplies piled up and undistributed in the searing summer heat. More than 8 months of Israeli genocide war have led to dire humanitarian conditions in the Gaza Strip and repeated UN warnings of famine. In a briefing late Friday, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, said the breakdown of public order and safety is increasingly endangering humanitarian workers and operations in Gaza, alongside the fighting criminal activities, and the risk of theft and robbery has effectively prevented the humanitarian access to critical locations. The UN Food Agency has said its aid convoys have been looted inside Gaza by desperate people, as both sides stall. It's the civilians in Gaza who are paying the heavily price. Aid agencies also pointed to Israeli offensive on the southern city of Rafah, which pushed out more than 1 million people and closed a border crossing with Egypt, as a deepening humanitarian crisis hampered relief efforts.